Where's my? All right, then I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, I've got. Oh, wrong way. Simple agenda on the screen that I will quickly go through, and then we can open it up and talk about anything that's going on that you guys would like to bring up. But a number of things are going on that have my attention currently, and I've got some of them here. Spokane has had a go live day yesterday on their new Alma instance and Primo V instance, so they're officially out of Win and part of our program now. And so I've been working with them on a few things yesterday and this morning, primarily around getting and mostly around getting Primo VE buttoned down and getting their search widget in place, and dealing with the transition of their request workflow, local and ILL, from their previous setup with Win to their standalone setup. So that will be a exciting thing going forward, to have them participating and bringing in some of the, maybe some new ideas on how they do things to what some of you guys do. So stay tuned for that. I don't, they're busy this morning, I'm sure. And so I don't know if Melinda or Ben will jump in on the call this morning. Another big thing happening is, as you may already know, Sally Sheedy at Whatcom is retiring at the end of this summer. And so Whatcom is in the middle of hiring a new systems librarian position. And that's as you guys know better than I do, I'm sure, it's any hiring cycle at an institution is kind of a big deal. And this is a Whatcom systems librarian position, is a faculty line position. So it's that you know, it has its own characteristics, and I am participating on that hiring committee, and we had our first meeting today. So that's going to take up some time for me the next couple of weeks. It looks like it's going to be more work than I anticipated. But I haven't participated in a hiring cycle in academics or with one of the colleges. So that's I have in the past in the private sector, but it's much less official, and it goes back a while. So not as much awareness of a lot of things. So anyways, that's going on. So it'll be exciting to have that position filled and move Whatcom on to their next iteration of staffing. Another one here is, you may have seen on Library Journal last week, Leslie Potter Henderson, who you guys know from Shoreline, and who's been acting director at Shoreline for I think since I started in this job, which is basically 5 years ago. She is now the new director, and that's it. The title might be, and that's not the official title. The official title is, Director of Library Media Services or something. That I'm just using the term director generically. But she is the new director at Yakima Valley College, replacing Tammy, who's since retired. So that's going to be a big change, both for Yakima and Shoreline. And as SJ indicated last week, Shoreline has a new director that is And again, I use that term informally. I'm not certain what the director title is at Shoreline, but in any case, their new director is starting on August 1st, and from Oregon, or what's called Oregon Tech now, Oregon Institute for Technology. So that's going to be, and that's somebody who has, I know the name. It's somebody who's been, Oregon Tech is an alliance institution and has, so the new director at Shoreline has a lot of consortial awareness and also Alma and Primo awareness. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring into the mix at Shoreline, and what, particularly from my perspective, I'm sure that there's a lot of non-Alma and non-Primo stuff that goes on in the libraries, of course. But from my perspective, what they'll want to do, or how active or vocal they'll be, or whether they'll want to check in with this group or with me, or how that will go. So that will be interesting. So other more day-to-day pragmatic things that have been going on that have come up. Just kind of a couple of reminders. One question, and I see Lorana on the call this morning. Was this? Oh no, it wasn't Lorana's question. It was. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember that. But this has come up a couple times recently. But issues with loading files from non-WorldCat sources, basically any file, and when I say files, I'm really meaning files of MARC records. Issues with importing MARC records. It happens rarely with files that you download from WorldCat, but files that you download from external vendors, and these will be primarily kind of ebook titles from miscellaneous vendors that you might buy ebooks from, and you want to catalog them locally. And in Alma, sometimes your import profile will throw errors when it tries to parse that file, and that is generally that issue is generally something in the, it's generally related to an error, some kind of error in the file that you downloaded, either an error that happens because of the download, like an errant byte, or a character gets garbled. But MARC records are pretty sensitive to that kind of thing. So when that kind of error happens, the best course of action is just to download the file again. Make sure you delete what you downloaded, download it again, and try to reload. And if that doesn't work, the next step is to open the MARC file in MARCedit and simply resave it as a new file. And MARCedit is generally pretty good about repairing any MARC, sort of those kind of errors that would be really hard to track down, fixing them automatically, just because it does a lot of validation prior to outputting those records into MARC again. So that's really, and then I see, Nicole, that's another, kind of Nicole's comment is about the encoding. File encoding can be an issue.
And of course, it was an enormous file.
Generally, you want the encoding and to be in UTF-8, and that's if you open and resave and MARCedit, you have the opportunity to change the file encoding, or also known as the character set sometimes. The UTF-8 is a newer character set that takes into account all the kinds of accents and extended characters that get used in various Latin scripts. rather than the more traditional ASCII character set that's more basic. So that's a, thanks for bringing that up, Nicole. I forgot that one. Yeah, MARC Edit is, Nicole says she hasn't used MARC Edit. MARC Edit is just a freely available MARC file, MARC file management and manipulation utility. If you just Google MARC Edit, it's written by Terry Reese. He was at Oregon State University. A lot of you will have seen this, particularly in the Northwest. It's, it goes back many years, and he was, so it came out of the Northwest. He's at university, he might be at Ohio State University now, but it's, if you just Google MARC Edit, there's, he's got a website where you can download it, and he's got a lot of instructional, if you've never used it before, he's got a lot of instructional stuff about how to open a MARC file and MARC Edit, and all that kind of stuff. And and MARC Edit is not the only MARC file utility out there. It's the primary one I've used. I don't know if anybody has others off the top of their head that they use. I know Library of Congress has some stuff that I've used before. But I don't know what other ones people have used. MARC Edit does pretty much everything. So the next thing I wanted to mention is just a reminder that, given that we're starting a new fiscal year, now is a good time to check your institutional calendars and hours in Alma, just to make sure that you've especially now that some libraries are starting to open and operate in a little more post-COVID paradigm, you may be extending your hours, and the hours can have an impact on, open days, closed days particularly have an impact on when things are due, and certainly hours can as well if you've got CERC rules based on less than 1 day timeframes, like for reserve materials. And we can take a quick look at this. I don't know. How about, let's look at, I see Tria on the call. Let's just look at Wenatchee's just for a place to look at. And you guys could, you may want to, if you're at a computer and it's convenient, log into your own Alma instance and do a quick drive through or drive by. So the hours and the calendar I'm talking about, you need to go to Alma configuration. So the cog or gear at the bottom left corner will get you into Alma admin, and then under general, you want to, let's see, where do we do this? Somebody tell me where I do this. The one thing to be aware of about calendars is that you can have things, and this will impact people that have multiple libraries defined, where you can have hours at one branch that are different than hours at another branch, and so you can define hours at either the institutional level or the library level. It's best to do things at the institutional level when you can, but certainly you may have libraries that have different hours. So in in those cases, you can define, you know, hours for each library. But if you go and add and edit library information, you'll see a calendar management tool, and I'm operating at the institutional level right now, so I can see all of the libraries that, and this again happens to be Wenatchee. And if I go to calendar management, I can see a couple of things on the calendar. It doesn't.
Yeah, our two libraries have very different hours, so we manage them at the.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So let's
the
look at
only
that.
thing
Yeah.
that we share is our end of term, and
So not even, you don't. So let's look at yours. So Priya works out of the OMAC library. or
yeah,
happens to work out-
this will be a good test to see what I'm doing.
Yeah. So so typically you have, just for review, that you have, you know, there are a couple of things as you work into your post-COVID paradigm. You want to check your standard opening hours, because that's the most basic thing you need in here. For any days that you are open, you want to have a standard opening hour for each day of the week that you're open. And these standard opening hours have validity, ranges of validity. So that in this case, it happens to go from October 2019 to October 2022. These hours are set for, and you can always edit these, but you want to indicate, for those days that you're open, what are the hours that you're open. And if we look at, and you just set the from hour to the 2 hour for each day of the week. It's you don't, for days that you're not open, if open hours aren't set for a day, then it's assumed that the library is just closed. So there's no open days here for Saturday and Sunday. So it's just assumed that Alma for due date setting purposes and fine purposes and all that, just assumes that the library is closed on Saturday and Sunday. And also just a reminder, these hours are really about circulation rules. They're not so much about the official hours. These don't get published anywhere. This is not like public facing information that where the library is open. So, there may be use cases where you want like you may have your building may open later, and sometimes libraries will have like a reading room open longer than the circ desk or something like that. So you can really think of these as circ desk hours and hours related to fulfillment rules and due dates, rather than building hours or public facing hours that you tell your patrons. And then you can add exceptions when you want to deviate from standard opening hours. So summer hours, it looks like, well, these summer hours are stale. It looks like OMAC was closed the summer of 2018, and so
yeah, I need to do a little updating.
Yeah, so you can delete, these. You could update them for you if you have, if you like in the summer, if OMAC is only open until noon on Fridays, then you would have an exception for summer hour, and the exception would be that on Fridays you're closed from noon to 2 p.m. So the exception is in relation to whatever the standard opening hour so if you're closing earlier, the exception would be that the library is actually closed from noon to 2 instead of changing the opening hours, you would just
Yeah.
make
So-
that
right.
adjustment.
And each, I mean, when I obviously went in and did this, we haven't, yeah, so we have to cancel
Yeah,
out a little
and-
in the morning and a little in the evening each day.
Yeah, and it's we're gonna say it, the if there's something in here that's off in terms of what's actually happening, that will the symptom will appear in how due dates are being set or something. You might see, like, if the library is actually closed in the summer, but it's not reflected in the calendar, you'll end up with due dates that might fall on a day that you closed, because that exception hasn't been made in the calendar. And another, let's see. And I don't see any holidays in here, but another type of exception is holidays that you're going to be closed.
I
like
think down
Niner.
at the bottom, there's like July 5th,
Let's see.
that exception, July 5th this year,
Oh, okay. Oh, God, just
in observance
good.
of.
Yeah. So it's just no description, but yeah. So you just say that on a particular day the library is closed, and that and if, like, you might, if in 2 weeks, oh, the library is going to be closed for cleaning or some, or in service or something, any kind of exception goes in here. The way these might affect it, changes made to the calendar after something has been checked out won't affect the due dates of the already existing transactions. So it only affects transactions going forward in time. So the earlier you get known, changes to the calendar, in effect, the better off you are. So that's why, particularly now, it's a good time to think about it and take a look at these. Oh, and let's see. Oh, and you'll see this, in talking about the institutional versus library calendar, the inherited column tells you if something is defined at the institutional or the library level. So anything that's checked as inherited, these are on the institutional calendar. So end of term, or any kind of exception is defined at the anything with a check mark is defined at the institutional. So I can't edit these at the library level. I can only edit these at the institutional level. And the end of term, an end of term events can be used as the basis of a due date policy, and so you can establish an event called end of year. So TRIA's got a couple in here. One is end of year, which kind of means end of academic year, just based on the date 6/30/22, and then end of term 8/20/21. So TRIA might be using end of term as a due date.
Yes.
Yeah, and if so, there is a due date policy defined that points to the end of term as a calendar event. So the fulfillment rule doesn't point to the calendar, it points to the due date policy, which is a little different. I mean, it ends up being the same thing functionally, but these due date policies they're usually defined as a period in time, like, 14 days, 28 days, etc. But they can also point to a calendar event, the calendar event being end of term. So it's this policy that's used in the fulfillment rule. And what that difference can be helpful, or that just the way that works is helpful, because all I have to do, and let's look at well, I guess I have to edit it at the institutional level. So for things that are due at this end of term, so that due date is pointing to that fulfillment rule is pointing to this event, I can just change this date next quarter after, once we're past this date. Tree would just go in as she did already for the summer term, change this date, and then that just, without having to edit the fulfillment rule, you've modified when that end of term due date is going to occur, because the fulfillment rule points to more or less this entry in the calendar. And if this entry in the calendar changes, then that changes the due dates that rule is applied to. So that's kind of cool. And again, like I said before, if I change this date right now, if I were to go in and edit this, it wouldn't change any of the materials that are already checked out under this rule, but it would change anything checked out as due at end of term from the point I changed that date. So that's so I'll pause there, see if see what kind of questions or thoughts you guys have. Talk about, I don't know if everybody's already thought about this, or if anybody has any massive changes this summer, or is it really looking towards fall that library schedules will be changing? And particularly, the closed, reflecting things like closed days for holidays and such are most important for libraries that charge overdue fines, because that will, the circulation period in its relation to what's happening in the calendar as far as closed days will impact how many overdue days a person might be charged for if you have overdue fines. If you don't have overdue fines, then it's more of a it's less important, at least from the actual impact in the real world, other than it might make, I don't know how things may still be called overdue in the patron's account, that if you didn't, if you were to account better for, or if your calendar was more accurate, those items might not be overdue. But if you're not charging fines, the overdue is less important, but it might still, you may still be sending out overdue notices, etc. So, calendar accuracy is it's worth keeping it accurate and worth thinking about it, especially at change of terms. So
I would just add, Wade, if anyone on the call is new to calendar management, that the most important thing to do is click that apply changes button.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
At the top, because it doesn't really seem that prominent or like it's that important, but it doesn't matter what you do in that calendar if you don't push that button.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Hitting save won't actually apply anything you do.
It saves your changes, but it doesn't apply them in the real world. And that's,
Yes.
that I would say that's by design to make sure. I mean, it's sort of a double safety for, because calendar changes can have big impacts. So, yes, apply changes. Yeah. And got us, it's not uncommon to be caught by that. Even I get caught by that. Any other tips anybody wants to add about anything I've missed about the calendar stuff? If not, oh yeah, the other kind of periodic task that we've been talking about this spring is just the annual fiscal year rollover, and as usual, I'll say that this conversation applies to those of you who use acquisitions and so need to do your own fiscal year rollover. If you're not using acquisitions, then I just do the rollover just to keep Alma up to date on fiscal years. That's really the only purpose of doing fiscal year rollover for those of you who don't use acquisitions. So I've been doing those, and actually it's I maybe I already mentioned this, but turns out that Tiny Peninsula College is using acquisitions, which I didn't realize. So, or maybe I knew it at one time. I don't, that they are using acquisitions. So I checked. I saw in their Alma instance that I saw some acquisitions activity, and I wasn't aware that they were using acquisitions. So that was a case where it's. I learned something about Peninsula that I wasn't aware of, and I'm not, you guys may know the name Will Parnell, who's the systems person there. There is a cataloger person who I assume is the one doing acquisitions. I don't, I think it's a she. I couldn't tell you her name. I mean, she doesn't really participate in the calls, but I assume that's who's been doing the acquisitions there. But and maybe Will is doing some of it for electronic resources, and I don't know how much to use it. But anyways, that was that was really just an aside. But for those of you who do use acquisitions, and you guys know who you are, Bellevue, Highline, off the top of my head, Shoreline, Edmonds, I think. I think those of you are the ones on the call who are doing acquisitions, so you guys are aware of. But yeah, for any of you guys, do you guys have questions or concerns about fiscal year rollover this year, or have any of you done it already? I mean, we're only. I mean, I don't know if how quickly you're moving into the new budget, or how. You're transitioning, but generally it's coming around the end of July that I think fiscal year rollover happens for those of you who use acquisitions generally. And all the rollover does, just a reminder that all it does is provide a way to duplicate your existing ledgers and funds into the new fiscal year, create the new fiscal year, and then for any POs that you have, POLs that you have that are continuous, they stay open in the sense that they are POLs that are repetitive each year. It it moves the POL into the new fiscal year. So that's all the fiscal year rollover does. And I can't think of any analogy in the personal finance world. You don't roll over your checkbook, or I can't think of anything similar. Oh, Paula's done her rollover. Okay. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, I see that in chat. Let's see if I missed it in chat. All right. Well, that's all I had to go through this morning. We do have some time left if there are any things that anybody wants to bring up. Anything going on at your own institution, or questions or problems you've run into. Now's the time. And I'm trying, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of any other things I know people are working on, or any new stuff that's come up. That we didn't. The question came up. We had a little discussion last week on the list about Gale activations for the WSL contract, and I provided that or the transcription from the WSL. Yeah, and by WSL, I mean the Washington State Library contract that was awarded to Gale that a lot of you are going to participate in, and there are a number of Gale products, and I provided on the listserv a mapping, and it's also, you know what, I think I thought of that. I did put on the consortial web page, let's see, where is it, under documentation, Gale WSL contract and Alma CZ activations. And here, I'll paste this link in the chat. Oh, I'm glad this comes from mine. This seems like a long time ago, but it's only a week. So there's a link in chat to that, the transcription of, or just transcribing of the Gale contract things to the things that you can activate in the CZ. And the one exception, and this was new info last week too, to me. I think somebody on the somebody alerted me to this, that there was a big oops moment at Ex Libris where somebody working on the CZ deleted the Gale Academic One file that was the active one people were working against. So the Gale Academic One file content disappeared. So that's what the asterisk is about on Gale Academic One file. And I haven't, unless anybody has any fresher information, I don't think that's back online yet. They're currently rebuilding it. So the quick info on that is if you have Gale Academic One file activated in Alma, just leave it activated, and once the collection is rebuilt in the CZ, it will work as previously. I'd recommend if you're going to be new to Gale Academic One file because it's a WSL contract and haven't activated it yet in Alma, just wait until that rebuild is done to activate. Because if you activate now, you're not going to get anything anyway. So it would probably just work if you activated it now. But if you're not currently activated, I would say just wait. and I'll post to the list and bring it up in this call when that's back online. And I'll check right after this meeting to see if I can find a new status on this. This has been heavily discussed on the Alma L list, the big Alma list. So it's a well-known thing. And if anybody has any corrections or changes to this, please do let me know. I think the one, and I don't know if it's the one, and maybe somebody knows the answer to this. One of the things in the Gale WSL contract, I think that might be listed is Gale Lit Finder. And it was on one WSL Gale resource list I saw, and then it wasn't on another one. So I don't know, maybe one of you knows if Gale Lit Finder is, because I don't think I have it on this page, if it's something that's actually, and because I think, and I'm not sure, I mean, Lit Finder sounds like a kind of a reader recommendation tool, which may not be a kind of thing that would be in the Alma CZ. Because it would be more proprietary info, but I'm not sure if that's what Gale Lit Finder is or not. So any thoughts on that one? Does anybody know? We could probably do LIT Finder is what this is. Yeah, Lit Finder. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, so that I'm not sure if this again, I saw it on one list and then, but not on another one. So my best, oops, where did it go? Oh, wait, I see there's been some chat. Yeah, let's see. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, so yeah, I see. Yeah. Oh, Naoko says it may be. Naoko, I don't know if you were subscribing to it before. Do you happen to know if it's in the CZ?
I'm not sure about that. I haven't gone through the state list yet. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, that's all right. I'll look.
I think it is. There is a collection in the
in the
CDI.
CZ that's
In the CDI anyway.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Yeah. Oh, if that, yeah, I'll confirm that in it and I'll add it to the web page I linked to that list.
Here's the number.
Oh, thanks, SJ. And then Tria mentioned the decolonizing the catalog. Yeah. What, Nicole, was there any big takeaways from that? Oh, and did they did they bring up the issue of the or was it a lot about the kind of what we've discussed here before, which is subject labeling and changing some of those like illegal immigrant kinds of headings?
Yeah, it was the subject heading issue.
And also quite a bit about searching, about optimizing like keywords in your catalog.
Right.
Yeah.
Terminology that's appropriate.
So that you get like texts that are seminal to the conversation about like anti-racism that maybe wouldn't have had anti-racism, and about some problems with like the 520 or like summaries, who writes them and what they say. There's a lot of really good information. I'd be happy to forward the recording to anyone.
Oh yeah, if you have it handy, Tria, you just post it in chat.
For the group rate, so I feel like this is a group, right?
Oh yeah. If you have the, if you have it super handy. Post it in chat and I can add it to the meeting notes, or email it to me after the meeting and I'll share it.
I just emailed it to you.
Okay, great.
I don't know if this will work. Our little prof point thing, protection safe link URL, makes things very annoying. But anyway, there's the huge long link.
Yeah. Yeah. And then was there anything that,
I think it could be an
Yeah.
interesting thing for us to look at, maybe as a state. even.
yeah, was there any discussion about like more actionable things people have done in their catalogs
Definitely.
in anything Alma Primo specific? Or is it more about just cataloging and just how they handle replacement of subject headings or how they localize authorities? Or,
Yeah. The
That's-
second.
yeah. And then, yeah, Lynn, I see your note, Lynn. Yeah, Sally is retiring from Whatcom into this summer. So yeah, she is retiring. Oh, and I see somebody responding to her.
Oh, that webinar was July 7th.
Any, I just kind of on the, I saw, like, I think I saw Ro mention Whatcom wasn't going with Gale, and I know Bellevue didn't. And, I think Whatcom's rationale was ProQuest is what's used at the four-year schools. And so to maintain continuity for students going that path, that was one rationale. Bellevue maybe is a school that hosts a lot of students that are heading that direction. Maybe that's another place where that was an issue, or that your budget's already full or something. I was wondering if starting a new fiscal year, does anybody know now of any big kind of electronic collection inventory changes you'll be making this year? Like any new things you're getting that could be of interest, or and is that, Nicole, is that a discussion that's is that like a teaching faculty discussion,
No.
librarians discussion?
Yeah,
Like-
we discuss what we were going to cut. We look at statistics and things of that nature, but
Oh,
there were some
I-
hard decisions. Things like CQ researcher got cut because it's fairly expensive, and we feel like the content is in other places, and some of the other cuts are more specialized, and some of them won't take action until later this year or even next year, just because of when the subscription actually ends.
Yeah, right. Subscriptions aren't always on your fiscal year. Right?
Yeah, we have a
But
couple that end in December, the end of December, and I think there's one that ends sometime next year. I forget. I've put it on my calendar, but I don't recall.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. That the discussions may be more about what to cut rather than what to add.
we took a page from either e-resources and libraries or ACRL, I can't remember which, where librarians had to just look at all of the resources, and you need to say what you would cut up to a certain dollar amount. We kind of went with that, which is brutal, but what can you do?
Yeah, and then has anybody identified any new open source content that they're interested in. Oh, good. Yeah. That's exciting, Nicole. And has that person been hired? Is that,
Yeah,
position
they have been hired. It's not someone from the system.
yeah.
I actually don't know much about her. I've heard her name once or twice, but I don't even remember what it is. So
Yeah.
we've had a lot of shuffling at Bellevue, of course.
Yeah. Well, it seems like
it
there's,
never ends.
yeah. And I know that's, yeah. I mean, OER is, I know it's a good chunk of your job, Ro, I believe. And it seems like there's other, I mean, I think there were a couple other open recs in the state for OER. So that seems like that's an area that will try that may be a whole other group or program at some point. I mean, I guess Bo Young is kind of the resource there. But anyways, all right. Well, I just got a few minutes left, so we can wrap it up there. Unless anybody wants to bring up anything else. Otherwise, thanks, as always, everybody for joining, and especially during the summer when attendance, I know it drops off because people's schedules may be shorter and fewer people around, but good meeting, and we'll do it again on Thursday. In the meantime, we'll keep in touch on the list and email. And we'll talk to all you guys soon.